G'day and welcome back to another episode of the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh coming to you from Auckland in New Zealand.
And I'm Zach Semke coming to you from Seattle, Washington.
How's things going in Seattle, Zach?
Seattle's good. It's absolutely gorgeous right now. We're having a beautiful summer. We are being spared from wildfires this year, which is
That's good to know.
I'm thanking my lucky stars and my heart goes out to folks in California dealing with the wildfires, and of course Louisiana and Texas dealing with the hurricanes. So we're feeling really fortunate right now.
It's kind of coming into that shoulder season where our climates, me in the Southern Hemisphere, you in the Northern Hemisphere, start to kind of get more similar. Of course, people that we are talking about in the show doesn't really affect them too much, as this week's guest talks about. Doesn't really know what's going on outside because it's so good on the inside.
That's right. In fact, it's so good on the inside that he can't even hear what's going on in the outside, as right. We'll hear about in the interview.
Yeah, so we're talking about John Beurle. This is a conversation I had with he's not an architect, he's actually an IT guy, and someone told him about Passive House, and I love his response, which was basically, why don't we all have one of these, when he found out what a passive house is capable of doing and does do very consistently. So this is a straw bale, straw. I'm not sure if it's straw bale. It's a straw house, and it's a passive house just outside of Melbourne in sort of country Victoria in Australia. And it's the journey of John's discovery of not just passive house, but also building in general. I mean, this is not his background. So it's really good insight into the homeowner's perspective. He also did a bit of work on it himself. So here he is, John Beurle from Australia, from Victoria in Australia, and his straw passive house. To start out, let's go back to I don't know how you describe yourself maybe prior to 2 years ago, but certainly wasn't an architect or a builder, was it?
No. I spent 35 years in IT, 25 in IBM, and the last 5 years before I started my home project was in a technology development and innovation sector.
Yeah,
funding projects and trying to improve manufacturing in Australia, which is where that started. And while I was working there, we just discovered a piece of land that we'd been looking for a million years, and we started the journey from there. So
where's
background and
where's been home for you in the past?
In the city, in Melbourne. So
yeah.
Melbourne, Australia, and city-based, 3 years in Europe on assignment in Germany, essentially based here in Australia.
Yeah. When were you in Germany?
2000 to 2002, so just over 2.5 years in Stuttgart in Germany, working on a Daimler Chrysler account with IBM.
Nice.
So we were selling systems and IT software to Daimler at the time. And it was an integrated account for IBM, and that meant a large team. We were doing about $400 million US a year with Daimler. And so it was a great experience in living in Europe and traveling. And
but you were there
20 years ago now.
Yeah. Do you remember when you first heard about Passive House?
Yes, very clearly. We had decided to build the home that we're in. We had decided pretty much on the materials. We were looking at a straw bale panel house, and we were looking for a builder to help pull it together. We were contemplating own a build, but we were looking for a builder to take it on. We're in central Victoria in Australia, and getting trades out here can be difficult, particularly good ones. And I was introduced through a friend to Stuart Lee from Craftsman Quality Builders, who are certified passive house trades, bunch of guys. And he was looking at the house as a project and couldn't take it on as a contract build, but he said, "Why don't you build this as a passive house? And if you do, I'll help you. But I can't take it on. I've got capacity on my other projects, but I'd be happy to help you." And he ended up helping me with the trades, the carpentry, and all the other things that we needed to pull together. So,
was his experience with straw as well?
No, he had no experience with straw.
Right.
He had, I think he was in the middle of his first passive house in Doreen. It's a Passive House Plus project. So he'd been trained and had done his, I think it was in the middle of that project when I met him. And he described what passive house was. And I said, well, why don't we all build our houses like that? That's a good idea. Yeah. I'll have one of those.
Do you remember what he said to you specifically?
Not specifically. He was passionate about insulation, quality of warmth, and just a stable environment. We're in the dusty, dry part of Victoria, and so it's pretty dusty outside. And he knew from our conversations that we were looking for something that was reasonably straightforward and simple, but we were looking for something that would give us a nice, quiet, comfortable retirement home. As it turned out, that was the plan. And when he described what it meant to be passive house, and then we looked at what we had and what we needed to change, it wasn't a major shift to go from, what would have been a very nice, stable, lovely straw bale house to a passive house. Really didn't require a lot of change. So, it was like, why wouldn't we?
What was your motivation originally for using straw?
Bucket list. I always thought if I was going to build a house, I wanted to build a straw house. I think it's a natural fibre. It's renewable, but it's comfortable. It's quiet. I really was looking for quiet and a warmth that was quite natural as possible. And that the path really was then, well, what's the best way to build in straw? And we went through the, hippie style single bale, lay them one by one, and
get a bunch of friends on site with chainsaws.
Get 600 friends who don't know what they're doing, and they build your house. Not happening in this place. And we ended up. And I think we'd actually found these before we'd met Stuart. Was a prefab straw bale panel system based from a company in central New South Wales, where they build basically a square box without, like a coffin, but without a top and a bottom, standing on its end with structural ply and straw under pressure inside the panel. And we ended up with 56 panels arrive on a truck, ready to stand up and screw together, and we had some walls.
And that's Huff and Puff, was it?
Huff and Puff.
Huff and Puff,
from Gangman, yes, ironic name. And I don't, and I'm sure they'll hear this at some point, but hippies from South Africa, and they've done the traditional straw bale construction methods. They've done classes. You could hire them, and they do a class in your place and bring all their friends and build your house. And I just was looking for a bit straighter and a bit more simple construction system. And they said, well, here's what they call them set-up panels, or super insulated tilt-up panels.
So similar to a SIP or a structural insulated panel, but I remember seeing them at one of the Passive House conferences, and immediately I just got it because it just seems so obvious once you see it, because it's bringing that tradition, like you say, the sort of hippie but really effective, into a more modern straight line kind of context that is, like you say, deliverable off the back of a truck, and there are your panels. It's a really nice melding of those two worlds.
Yeah, it really was so simple that we had 56 panels. Perimeter of the building was just under 99 metres if you draw a line all the way around. So windows and doors, and then normal wall sections, and so there was 56 panels. They were up and stable, like stabilized, in 2 days.
Had you built a house or done any building projects before?
No, never built a house. But in my youth, before I got into sales and IT, I worked on a mine site and helped in construction there, and built concrete swimming pools for 2 years when I was 19. And that gives you a good insight to, most construction issues.
So you weren't tempted to revert back to the old solid materials, tilt slab concrete?
No. The pools were concrete, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But they were sort of upmarket, beautiful shaped and Turek sort of jobs.
Yeah.
They were a lot of money, and lots of tiles, and it was all. But it was great work, and work ethic and understanding of steel and construction and dealing with trades and concrete guys and all those sort of dudes. I don't. It's not uncommon, not uncomfortable for me. I enjoy it.
But this is your first foray into building, and am I right in assuming this is sort of a bit of a forever home for you? Is it sort of? Was you plan on building again, or it's not really a prototype?
No, it wasn't a prototype. It was planned to be retirement. I'm sort of semi-retired doing things now. Mm-hmm. But it was going to be a weekender while we were working, but my wife still works full time. And, we've got an apartment in the city, and we would commute on weekends. So it was weekender. And, when the time came, we would, relocate here. But it's become, as the story will unfold in our conversation, it's become more than just a weekender or a place to prop on on holidays. It's basically where I live now, and I wouldn't live anywhere else, actually. The apartment is cold and clammy, and I always have a heater or a cooler on.
You're launching into straw bale, which is, a lot of people would see that as a bit of a gamble for someone who has never done it before. And then someone pops up with this idea about passive house. Did you have any reservations about any of that?
No. I guess I've always been someone who works with their hands, and having had trade experience with, in the pool business and the mines, I kind of understand the lingo and know how stuff gets done. And what we were planning was pretty straightforward in the sense of the method and the material. You couldn't get much more simple. And I had utmost faith in Stuart, who, if you know Stuart, is very detailed, he's very accurate, thorough, and believable. Mm-hmm. He's not one of these builders that'll come in and slick sell you something.
Yeah.
He'll tell it as it is. And we, we had a few, whoopsa moments, but nothing that couldn't be overcome. And it was an experience that, I never doubted it. And probably my wife has been amazing in giving me the support and the encouragement to do it. And I don't think I've let her down. And, when that happens, it's a perfect world.
It sounds like you're pretty happy and comfortable, more so where you are now, reluctant to head back to the apartment. Would your wife say the same thing?
Yes. Well, she's in isolation up here and working from home full time. I think the longer she's here, the more in love with the place she gets, because it's just so comfortable. Everyone kind of says, "Oh, you got to let the outside in," and so on. But in reality, we're so much more comfortable. We walk outside any time when we can open our windows. But the comfort level is so natural, so comfortable that the windows stay closed.
How much of that do you attribute to the straw, and how much do you think it's the air tightness in the passive house?
Look, the right answer, and it's a true answer, is it's a combination of all of those things. I think the quietness of the walls and the quality of the windows is such that it's so quiet inside. We can have a truck pull up outside. We're in the country, right? So there's no noise. A dirty, big truck will turn up at the front of our place. You saw the pictures before. We won't hear them. So I've now had to put a front doorbell so someone could.
You need a security camera. Need a security camera out there.
Just installed last week. I've got a camera up at the gate that tells me someone's come through.
Yeah.
I can actually look and see who it is. But we got a few surprises with visitors or out of the blue people come knocking on the door and go, "Where did you come from?" Because we can't hear anything.
Dog's not barking.
No, well, we've now got a dog that would bark, so that's problem solved. But it's amazingly quiet. And I think the straw. I haven't lived in a non-straw house, so I assume that the quietness would be similar in other passive houses. But I think the straw, it's a double negative, amplifies the quietness. Is that English?
Yeah,
it emphasizes the quietness.
Yeah,
but the windows, obviously. They passed the blower door test, so there's no noise, no drafty noises or whistling. We have one sliding door, which is a big door, and if we have it unlocked but in a closed position, we'll get a whistle with the wind. But if we lock it, because it drops down and locks into the keyholes, the locks, the whistle goes away.
Yeah.
So it's the only noise we get from outside unless we leave the windows or the doors open. Speaking
of your windows joineries, where'd they come from? Were they Australian, local, or did you import some materials?
So this is 3.5 years ago. So the market's changed a bit since then. We were about to sign the window contract when I met Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at a local manufacturer. We wanted to buy local, and we found some nice windows. I won't mention the name. And we were about to sign the deal contract because we knew the lead time and all that sort of stuff. And then after I'd discovered the huge impact poor windows or windows have on any house, but obviously on the performance of a passive house, when I started asking the manufacturer about performance data and seals and pressure tests and hinges and all of these things, there was a blank look and a pause on the telephone that said, "Oh, we did some testing about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Will that do?" And I didn't really understand it until I was working it through with our designer, who was Harley Trong from Canberra.
Yeah.
And armed with the right information, it became very, very clear these windows were never going to work for us in a passive house.
Yeah.
Ended up buying the Dofner windows from Laros Technologies in Canberra.
Yeah.
It was interesting exercise. Some of them were motorised windows because we had some cloister windows and a whole bunch of sliding doors and lots and lots of opening windows. And once I'd really understood what passive house meant, in fact, I take my hat off to Andreas Lutzi from Laros. He explained to me why I don't need 15 opening windows in my house. We had 3 big sliding windows, 2 bedrooms, actually 4 sliding doors, 1 in each of the bedrooms and 1 big one going out to our deck. And he said, "John, I guarantee you 99.9% of the time, those doors will be closed."
Yeah.
And why would you spend $10,000 or $15,000 on a 3-metre opening when all you're going to do is use it as a door?
Yeah.
So we changed that completely. We ended up with 1 sliding door because we're out to the deck, and on the few occasions where we want to have it wide open, it makes sense. That was a bridge too far. We couldn't go without a sliding door. We were going to have bifold doors, and that went out the window real fast.
Yeah.
So when Andreas talked me through, and Michael Kingsland, those guys are gold. We got to know them. We talked through each window. What are you going to use it for? What's it? Is it the right size now? I won the argument on the size of windows. They're too large, but I won because I'm the client. But we more than halved the number of opening windows to fixed windows.
Interesting.
We didn't reduce any. We might have dropped one, but we closed about 10 or 12 of them. We've got 2 in a bathroom and a toilet that open, and when they've never been opened since we put them in.
Yeah, wow.
The ventilation system works. So if you compared apples with apples, the original quote plus our windows for this project, it was double. But when you took out opening windows, refinement of all of those choices, it was about 8% difference.
Interesting. So everyone says that windows are a huge cost. They go up, but then you can actually pare it back by simplifying and reducing the moving parts.
We've got a window that's probably 600 or 700 by 1200. That's an opening window, and one next to it that is probably 2.5 meters square.
Yeah,
and it's a third of the price of the other window.
Wow. And you don't feel like you've missed out on anything?
Absolutely not. Why would I open the windows and let the dust in?
Yeah. Well, which begs the question about that original design. Is that just the assumption that, because that's the track that most people would take, is to have all those opening windows and lots of this indoor-outdoor flow, and the sliding doors. Is that just a kind of assumption that we think we need all that in our modern houses?
Yep, because the brochures and the magazines are full of windows that wide open. You can walk straight through, a 5 meter gap into a living area, through another 3 meter gap to the front of the house.
Yeah.
When in your life are you going to have all that open? Only when the photos are being taken.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So in the real world, this is where Andreas was amazing. He said, yes, you can look at the brochures and all these beautiful things. Think about what you're going to do in 10 years' time when you're either cleaning them or worrying about all that air leakage because the windows didn't seal, and the money you could have spent on your solar panels or whatever, which I did.
Just do you turn your ventilation system off at those times when you're night venting, or does that just stay on as well?
Never.
Right.
It's always on.
Yeah.
The only time we change it, we obviously have boost buttons when showers and cooking and things. And when we're away for more than a few days, we put it into away mode, and it just drops down to about 60 cubic meters an hour sort of thing.
Now, just one more technical point about a straw. It's not the most airtight material. Any complications of making a straw bale house into a passive house?
Not at all. So with the nice square frame system and then a clean cut of straw down the edge of the straw, we decided the air tightness layer would be on the inside. So think of it, you've got a box with straw in it, and there's the opening. You put to it, the paper was basically on the inside layer, stapled on, taped in, and we were done. And then on the outside, we had a lime render, which is a watertight, a waterproof layer.
Yeah.
I'm sure that with the render, moisture does get in, but it dries and it's got to go through 450 mil of straw, and I've had no issues at all.
And with that render on the outside and your lining, it's quite a contemporary look on the inside.
Yes.
You have included what you call your honesty window.
Truth window, yes.
Because you wouldn't know that it's a straw bale house to look at it, would you? Because it's a very modern looking, there's nothing hippie about it.
No, the giveaway, if you're looking, is how thick the walls are.
Sure.
They're 500 mils from render to plaster.
Yeah.
But the truth window is actually outside, and so it's undercover. So you can't put a truth window on the inside and keep the air tightness. So we put it on the outside.
But you have managed to get an airtight dog door in there.
Yes, because we have two big
and
doors.
How warm does it get just to give people an idea of the climate that you're in? What are your sort of summer temperatures outside?
So we're typically more warmer than Melbourne.
Yeah.
If you know Victoria, the Bendigo, we're on the same line as Bendigo, and we get very similar. So
have you needed to mechanically cool at all?
What we did, and this was in the plan regardless of what we were doing, because we've had a great experience in the past, is we've had ceiling fans in every room.
Yep.
So that soft movement of air has been always a thing we've liked. And so I would say 95% of the time when you might have actually thought about putting the aircon on, we have the ceiling fans on, and you probably don't. So 4 or 5 times a year we might have the aircon on. It's in the central living area, and it's on for half an hour, and then it's a bit cool, so we turn it off. So the place stays pretty stable.
Yeah.
The data we typically, the way I described it is, Passive House Classic is 20 to 25, 90% of the time. We get 18, 19, 25, 26 is about the band without doing anything. So if it gets up to 20...
25, even 26, when it's 42 outside, would feel quite pleasant.
Feels cool.
Yeah.
When it's humid and hot, that's when we notice it most.
Right.
The bypass comes on the HRV, and if we get a week of 40, the split system will come on.
Right.
But that's not common.
Yeah.
But it can be. We did have a day of 46, and I didn't turn it on. Believe it or not.
Now, your passive house experience has extended beyond building one and living in one. What made you decide to jump in boots and all to the association and get more involved with Passive House?
Sure. Well, I really love the process, and I love the outcome. And in fact, the outcome has far exceeded what we thought we would attain.
Mm-hmm.
I understood it, but I didn't get it until I moved in, because it's that experience when you walk into a passive house that you go, and now I understand what thermal comfort means.
Right.
And with the work that I was doing before I started building the house, business closed down, I was thinking, well, what can I do? So I decided, well, what would have helped me doing what I've just done if I had someone I could talk to that could fast track so many of the things that the technical people talk to you about, the builder talks to you about, that I didn't know, and I didn't know everything, obviously. So I felt that being a consultant to help people on the same journey was something I could do.
Yeah. And
to do that properly, 2 things had to happen. One, I felt I needed to have a certified passive house. Didn't quite make it to certified passive house, like a certified low energy building, and do the consulting course. I don't have a trade, or a certificate in other architectural work, so I'm classified as a consultant. Did the course, and I've been in between shifting rocks and doing my landscaping. I've been trying to do a bit of consulting, and that's slowly building. I really enjoyed it, and I felt that we really needed to push Passive House into the broader market, get more people excited about it. And I'm pretty passionate about it and trying to educate as many people as I can, and really push some commercial buildings that could very easily be flagship passive house projects to put the technology and the outcomes in the marketplace in a little bit more obvious manner than.
Is that the next focus, you think, for Passive House in Australia?
I think the momentum's building. We're getting more awareness and more understanding. But I think we need to make a step change. Our contemporaries in Canada and New York and other places, and obviously in Europe it's a different story, but I think we can be bolder, and we need to get some bigger projects, some complexes, some office buildings, some schools, some kindergartens, public spaces that brings people's awareness to what's possible. Because the minute people walk, as you know, the minute people walk into a passive building, they know what you're talking about.
It's mostly can't believe how comfortable it is. Just or just
they forget about it.
Or they forget about it. Yeah. And speaking of experiences, you set yours up as an Airbnb. Is that right?
So we were planning to do that a bit anyway at some point, just for a bit of extra cash. But when I realised that when people came for open days, so we had open days with the Passive House Association and the Sustainable House Day, and the interest was amazing, and we felt, well, why wouldn't we just make it available for people to come and stay? Spend a weekend or a couple of days or whatever, and really experience it. Spend a night, get up in the morning at 5 o'clock when it's cold outside, and go to the loo with your no socks on, and you're not cold. So yes, it's available on Airbnb, and it's a bit quiet at the moment. If your designer's doing a good job, he'll design you a beautiful home to look at. Everyone's going to design a beautiful home normally. Not everyone builds a house that works, and you can't articulate that in print or photo. You've got to feel it.
What would your tips be, or top tip for someone who's just embarking on their own journey? What piece of advice, whether they're a designer in the industry or a consumer that's looking at a new home, what would you say to them?
Absolutely, just do it. Get yourself in one, spend a few days. Can be mine, doesn't have to be mine, but that experience will make your decision. Every time a passive house consultant or designer will give you a question or talk about stuff that's important, like air tightness or good quality windows, if you understand why that's important, half the problems go away. It's not about why, it's about how. Let's get on with it, and let's do it, and just do it. It's just, why would you build it any other way? And if you're a builder, I'd say here's a real opportunity to differentiate yourself in the market. If you're a good builder now, you'll be a great passive house builder. Just get over get the understandings in your belt, and the air tightness importance and how detail is important, but that should be important anyway. And here's a method and a process that ensures a guaranteed performance. How good would that be? We ask it of our cars and, other things we buy. We don't do it about our houses. Here's a way, passive house way, is you can present a solution to your client that says, if you want this passive house, comfort, low energy, constant temperatures, minimal humidity, all of these lovely things, here's a way I can guarantee it. Build it this way, install it that way, test it. So, and it's a tough market out there. Here's a relatively low cost way of differentiating yourself, and probably stepping yourself up in the market in the sense of the quality and budget of houses that you build.
And that was John Beurle. So he is in country Victoria, just outside of Melbourne in Australia. What were your outtakes from that, Zach?
Well, I had never, unlike you, I'd never heard of the insulated panels that incorporate straw, and so that was pretty cool to meld that sort of hippie approach to deep green building with precision, and the precision that's necessary to do passive house right. So that was pretty inspiring to see. I was also struck by we're a lot of single family passive houses, especially early on in the passive house movement, and we experienced this in the United States and in the Pacific Northwest where I'm based. A lot of the early adopters are tech people who are really, I think attracted to the kind of simplicity and the physics-based design that Passive
They
House
love
is all about.
spreadsheets.
Yeah, right, exactly. In fact, one of the Passive House projects that the contractor that I used to work with, hammer in hand, our client was one of the developers of Microsoft Excel, for example.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yes, it's all about spreadsheets.
Well, it's true, because it's something that you can analyze and you get an answer, you get a bunch of numbers, and it's predictable, and there is that science behind it. This project is a really nice example, like you say, as one of the oldest building materials that there is, with modern day construction techniques and the science of Passive House.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the other things about that is that John, is at a place in his life where he has the privilege to build the house that he really wants. And what I appreciate about the decisions he's made is that he is also creating and laying the foundation for the kinds of buildings that all of us need.
Yeah.
The fact that he just dove into Passive House and went for it, but also the fact that he's opening it up as an Airbnb and allowing people to have that the experience of a Passive House. Because I remember the first time I walked into Passive House, I was blown away by the air. It was just it was so clean, and it felt like it was comfortable and quiet as you expect when you're inside, but the air was like the freshest outside air. On a clear day. So he's caught the bug. He's caught the bug, but he's also wanting to share that as well and share that experience with lots of people. And in fact, there's a video you mentioned just before we started recording, the video that you showed at the Passive House Accelerator, which I think is available online, that people can jump on and have a look at that house. Yes, that's right. At the top of the show for our happy hour yesterday, we featured a short video that John did of the house. It's great piece. One of the other things that I picked up just quickly was relationships. He obviously, like any building, he had challenges, but it seemed like he just had really good trust in suppliers and also consultants. And there was which must be a big thing, because he's stepping into this world which is fairly unknown. It's he's not coming from a building background, but he mentioned the guys from Laros, which I know are fantastic. Also, I did pick up Harley Truong. We'll have to get Harley on the show sometime. If you get the chance, look up Harley. We'll put a link to his website. That's h3space.com.au. He was one of the consultants, I think, worked on this. But he's got a fantastic personal story as well, where he actually built a Passive House in Canberra. And one of the issues there is staying cool. And we're seeing more and more of this in Australia. And I think we'll start to see more passive houses that are being built not just to keep warm, but also to keep cool. So lots more to discuss in future episodes. What have we got coming up around the place, and particularly Passive House Accelerator, Zach? Yeah, we've got some great stuff coming up and some exciting news. Partel, which is a manufacturer of membranes and tapes and adhesives for high performance projects and Passive House buildings, as well as a thermal brake product. Partel has become a patron sponsor of the accelerator, and all of our work is made possible by our sponsors. So we're really appreciative that Partel has joined us as a partner. And we also have, we were talking about the happy hour. Our happy hour this coming week is with Lois Arena from Stephen Winters Associates. And Lois is the powerhouse Passive House engineer behind many of the largest Passive House projects in North America, and a lot of the iconic ones in New York, for example. So she's going to be at the Passive House happy hour this Wednesday. That happens at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, 1 a.m. Darmstadt time on Thursday, and 9 a.m. Melbourne time on Thursday. So please join us for that. 11 a.m. New Zealand time. Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple more things coming up. PHIUS, Passive House Institute US, is holding its Certified Passive House Builders training. It starts on August 31st and runs through September 11th. And we'll share a link to the registration page for that training. And
is that a 2-week course?
It is. Yes,
Awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's a deep dive into the training, and it culminates with an examination process to become certified as a passive house builder. And then PHI, the Passive House Institute, is opening up its Passive House Fundamentals course, which is an online course. You can get 6 months access to this primer on Passive House for €95 if you purchase before October 8th. And that €95 can then be applied as credit to registration for the 24th International Passive House Conference, which will be held virtually beginning September 20th and running through October 8th. And so we'll share the link.
That's quite a good option. So that's a good chunk off the registration fee for the full conference.
Absolutely. And then you also you go into the conference with a really good foundation and understanding of passive house. So I think it's perfect for professionals who are getting ramped up for the first time.
That'd be a great one for listeners of this show and for audience of the Accelerator to share with their colleagues, because that primer is really good for people who are just getting into passive house or just hearing about it for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. So that's what we have going on right now. And I also want to take a moment to thank our founding sponsors who make our work possible. So that's Baxt Ingwe Architects, Mitsubishi Electric, RDH Building Science, Stow Corp, and Zola Windows. And I also want to thank our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, or the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much to all of those. Passive House Accelerator is certainly a great resource and an awesome community. So if you haven't jumped onto those happy hours and also the other resources on that website, make sure you check that out, passivehouseaccelerator.com.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very good. Hey, well, thank you for listening in. That's us for another episode. We've got a whole bunch more lined up, which we're going to bring you in on a weekly basis now, dropping every Monday. And I'd just like to do a quick thanks again to Passive House Accelerator and also to our intern, Sydney Fishman, who helps put these shows together. Couldn't do it without her. Thank you very much, Sydney. And thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Matthew. This is really fun. Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you again next week.